Welcome to the dish for July 25th, 2025. 15 minutes of curated insights and intelligence for federal contracting stakeholders. I'm go-to guy Timberlake of the ASPC, and today we're serving up three essential topics. First, the new OMB memo on procurement consolidation and what it really means for GSA Schedule growth. Then, industry veterans and government ones too weigh in on that same memo, looking at different parts and share their concerns about GSA's capacity and agency escape hatches. Finally, three major DHS contract cancellations totaling over $10 billion. It's a clear sign of the administration's GSA OneGov strategy in action. Plus, in our worth noting segment, we'll recognize outstanding contributions to the govcon community. Let's get to it. Last week, the OMB issued a memo on the upcoming procurement consolidation, giving guidance for how it should be done for consolidating the procurement of common goods and services through GSA. Currently, as the memo states, less than 20% of the $490 billion in common spend goes through any GSA vehicle. That's only $78.2 billion during the last fiscal year. The memo establishes two work streams: increased use of centralized contracts and centralization of procurement functions at GSA for suitable requirements. Now, why this matters? Most contractors hear time to get a GSA schedule, when the actuality is the majority of spend has never gone to schedules and most likely still won't. Here's why. Of the nearly $500 billion obligated to the 10 common goods and services categories during fiscal year 2024, DoD accounted for $400 billion of that spend. One of the categories, medical, is already well covered by VA's Federal Supply Schedule program. Another category, facilities and construction, is only partially eligible since construction isn't considered commercial items or services. And MAS only supports commercial goods and services. Since DoD accounts for 80% of the common goods and services, that language creates an opening for DoD to keep buying as they currently do. The memo states lower priority will be given to requirements where economy and efficiency is more difficult to achieve through consolidation, such as for requirements that are similar across agencies, but exact needs differ from one agency to another and may require some customization, or of sufficiently complex or mission-specific nature, where contract performance is likely to involve ongoing engagement between buying and program offices. Here's what you need to know. Don't rush to get a MAS contract based on the memo alone. When you do the math on what's actually eligible for consolidation, removing DoD's $400 billion, medical spending on VA schedules, and non-commercial construction, MAS might see growth from its $52 billion, but not the gold rush that a lot of folks think. In FY 2024, 8 of 70 obligating departments didn't place a single order against MAS. That pattern is likely going to continue. The bottom line from my friend and industry expert Courtney Fairchild at Global Services: if you have an existing MAS contract, beef it up now. Update your special item numbers, labor categories, rates, and points of contact. If you don't have a MAS yet, listen to your customers and get good information related to which customers will actually use it, which won't, and what goods and services truly fit the definition of commercial. Now we're going to take a break and hear from one of our sponsors. This episode of The Dish is sponsored by Elder Research, handcrafting innovative analytics solutions that inform decisions, deliver value, and transform organizations. They're known as the SEAL team of data analytics within their government customers, and they combine rigorous science, statistics, machine learning, and engineering to solve the toughest challenges. When you need analytic models and solutions that are accurate, unbiased, and reliable, Elder Research delivers results you can trust. Learn more about them at elderresearch.com. Okay, we're back with our second topic today. We don't actually have to go far, well, no pun intended, to get to that next topic because we're going to stay within the memo from OMB. So last week on LinkedIn, former OMB Associate Administrator Robert Shea broke down the memo into 4 key requirements. 1, agencies must use existing government-wide contracts first. GSA will leverage category management to identify consolidation opportunities. GSA will absorb more procurement functions with agencies proposing transfers within 60 days, and new accountability measures with performance metrics and service level agreements. Now, here's why this matters. Industry sage Stan Soloway, former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition Reform, raised critical concerns about GSA's capacity to absorb more work given an already overloaded workforce and the memo's decision matrix that provides a giant escape hatch for agencies reluctant to transfer their procurement functions. This echoes a historical pattern. Agencies have resisted consolidation efforts before. Here's what you need to know. The memo resurrects an old approach. Years ago, I wrote on LinkedIn, federal supply schedules were listed in FAR 8.002 as one of the required sources of supply. That meant agencies had to look at the schedule and the other sources first before they could go anywhere else. The question now is whether heading back to that mandatory structure, Soloway's capacity concerns are valid. If GSA can't effectively manage increased volume, the promised efficiencies disappear. Watch for agency pushback and GSA's actual implementation capacity over the next 90 days. Folks, this episode of The Dish is also sponsored by IT Availability, a mission-focused information technology firm led by former senior technology executives from the U.S. intelligence community. Their technical professionals excel at implementing new technology, mitigating cyber risk, and ensuring data integrity. With experts spanning satellite and terrestrial communications, network operations, cybersecurity, software development, and data center services, IT Availability brings deep understanding of IC customers' mission needs and delivers real solutions for meaningful outcomes. Learn more about them at itavailability.com. Folks, if you haven't heard, last week, the U.S. Coast Guard canceled a $500 million logistics contract. It was abrupt, showed up on sam.gov, and the business and logistics management support services procurement was done. Now, a lot of companies have been working on this for nearly 2 years, and there was no explanation offered on sam.gov, just one sentence. This opportunity is canceled and will not be solicited. Now, it's not the first time. Recently, DHS also canceled 2 major contracts, First Source 3 and PAX 3. Both of these department-wide vehicles, both terminated for convenience after small businesses spent hundreds of hours and, well, probably that many dollars in the thousands on the bids for that opportunity. Now, why this matters? This is a clear rollout of the new consolidation strategy known as GSA OneGov. The Coast Guard contract was set to consolidate 2 existing BPAs while DHS had been pursuing First Source 3 since 2021, and they had already made awards to 30 small businesses in September. When 3 major DHS procurements totaling over $10 billion disappear, it's the consolidation policy in action. Agencies are being directed to use existing GSA vehicles rather than create new agency-specific contracts. Now, what you need to know is this. Although the Coast Guard contract was stopped from its previous course, keep an eye out for it, especially when you consider the language in the OMB memo about lower priority being given to certain mission-specific needs. The Coast Guard's logistics and business support requirements may be complex enough to warrant their own procurement approach rather than forcing them through GSA vehicles. Watch for these requirements to potentially resurface as the agency evaluates whether their needs truly fit the consolidation model or requires the mission-specific contracting the OMB memo acknowledges. One of the folks that actually commented on one of the posts I looked at online was my friend Courtney Fairchild. And in our first pilot episode, and for many more to come, Courtney's organization, Global Services, is one of our sponsors. Global Services helps achieve federal proposal success for government contractors, and they've been doing it for over 25 years. They've actually helped over 3,000 businesses earn more than $25 billion in contracts. As a small business themselves, they understand your unique challenges and makes the proposal process efficient, transparent, and approachable. Their mission, technically proficient, customer-focused proposal development that creates success stories for every client. Check them out on the web at globalservicesinc.com. Hey, folks, too often there are people and organizations in our industry who are overlooked. They're making a difference without making the headlines. And for that reason, we think they're worth noting. So we created a segment called Just That. So before wrapping up this first edition of The Dish, here are some people from the federal contracting community worth knowing. Maybe you know or are some of them. First, we want to start with Kendra Dion, CEO of the Hub Zone Contractors National Council. What's worth noting is that Kendra and her team last week pulled off a major success. Kendra set goals for this year's conference, and with her team, Angela and Chloe, they put their heads down about a year ago and got to work. And their goal was to ensure value was going to be received by both, or actually all three, attendees, exhibitors, and presenters alike. Now, in a time what we're seeing right now where there's a lot of change disrupting how these kind of programs work today, well, it's a big deal. And their efforts for pulling off a fabulous conference, providing value to thousands, well, that's worth noting. So, Kendra, Angela, Chloe, congratulations. Last week, folks, the administration announced the closures of USDA facilities and relocating much of their DC employee base out of the area to be, well, quote, closer to the farmers. Now, it's worth noting that many in government and industry see this as an end around to reducing staff. Most importantly, it's worth noting the service of the people being transitioned out of DC or out of USDA altogether. I say the following as the son of a man who was a soldier and then a career federal employee of HHS, dating back to when it was actually HEW HHS. Federal workers traditionally get a bad rap. And the truth is, a majority of them, whether they're civilian or military, are just as committed to doing the right thing for our nation as anyone can possibly be. So, to all the folks at USDA, everyone else government-wide that is either transitioning or still on the job, thank you. Last but not least, it's worth noting the resilience of the GovCon business community. The suppliers and the contractors who stand shoulder to shoulder with federal employees and the military in supporting various missions, including those that put them in harm's way, well, that's worth noting. I've been a part of this community since 1988, supporting missions across civilian, defense, and intelligence agencies. So I understand very, very well exactly what it takes. To all my friends and colleagues out there, maintain the resilience. Hang in there. Your efforts to support the nation are worthy of being noted. Folks, if you know someone doing exceptional work out there in GovCon, send us their story at thedish@theaspc.org. Folks, this is the very first serving of the dish, part of the Getting Fed family of information portfolio products. Now, remember, in federal contracting, the companies that actually go out and get shit done are the ones that stay ahead of the intelligence curve. Use what we've served up, use what you gather on your own, take action. We'll be back next week with another 15 minutes of insights and intelligence. I'm go-to guy Timberlake, and thanks for listening to the very first episode of The Dish.